There are some sentences that stay in your head forever. Not because they're true, because someone said them at the exact moment you were most vulnerable. For me, that sentence was, "You'll never find anyone like me again." My ex-girlfriend said that to me right after I caught her cheating. And honestly, at the time, part of me believed her. Not because she was special, because she spent years convincing me she was out of my league. This happened about 2 years ago. I was 33 at the time, working a pretty normal office job, living a pretty normal life. Nothing glamorous, nothing exciting. Then I met Chloe. We matched on one of those serious relationship dating apps. Not Tinder. One of the apps where people pretend they're emotionally mature and looking for real love. At first, it actually felt genuine. Our conversations flowed instantly. We had the same humor, same music taste, same sarcastic energy. We could talk for hours without getting bored. And after enough disappointing dates with random people, that kind of connection feels dangerous because you start imagining things too quickly. The first time we met in person, I remember standing outside the restaurant feeling nervous in a way I hadn't felt since college. Then she walked in, and honestly, she was stunning. Not just pretty, the kind of beautiful that makes people stop mid-conversation to stare. The kind of woman who gets free drinks without asking. The kind of woman other women secretly hate and men instantly notice. Meanwhile, I was just me. Normal guy. Decent looking, sure. But standing next to her felt like accidentally winning some genetic lottery I didn't belong in. That thought stayed in the back of my mind for most of the relationship. At first, I tried ignoring it. But Chloe made it impossible sometimes. Not directly. Not openly cruel. Subtle things. Comments. Little reminders that she knew exactly how attractive she was. Guys hit on her constantly. At restaurants. At bars. Even while standing beside me. And instead of shutting it down quickly, sometimes she almost seemed entertained by it. Like she enjoyed watching other men compete for attention. Still, I trusted her. That's the embarrassing part. Even with all the warning signs, I genuinely believed she cared about me. Because when things were good between us, they were really good. Trips together, late-night conversations, cooking dinner at home while music played in the background. The kind of relationship moments that make you start imagining marriage without even realizing it. Then came the conversation that should have warned me about everything. We were lying in bed one night, talking nonsense like couples do when they're half asleep. Random topics, celebrity crushes, hall passes, that kind of thing. Then Chloe laughed and said, "My hall pass is Justin Timberlake." I laughed too. Fair enough. Then she smirked and said something I never forgot. Honestly, I don't think many celebrities would say no to me. The way she said it wasn't joking. Not really. Confident. Certain. Almost proud. I laughed awkwardly, but something about it stayed with me afterward. Because suddenly I realized Chloe didn't just know she was attractive. She genuinely believed she was above other people, including me. And once that idea enters your relationship, everything changes. After that, little things started bothering me more. She'd casually mention guys demanding her on Instagram, co-workers flirting with her, exes trying to reconnect. At first, I tried acting unbothered. I didn't want to become the jealous, insecure boyfriend. But deep down, something felt off. Then her behavior changed completely. Slowly at first, she started coming home later from work. Nothing dramatic initially. 30 minutes, an hour, then eventually much later. And the excuses were always vague. Oh, I lost track of time. Had drinks with co-workers. Ran into an old friend. Before, she used to tell me detailed stories about her day, naturally. Now, every explanation felt rehearsed. Short, careful, and whenever I asked too many questions, she got irritated immediately. "You don't trust me? You're overthinking. Why are you acting controlling?" That's the thing manipulative people do. They make your suspicion feel like the crime instead of the behavior causing it. Still, I kept trying to believe her. Because once you love someone deeply, your brain starts protecting you from painful truths, even obvious ones. Then one night, everything changed. She came home around 9:30 p.m. wearing this black dress I'd never seen before. Hair perfect, makeup flawless. And the second she walked inside, I knew. I can't explain it logically, Nothing specific happened. No evidence. No confession. Just instinct. Pure instinct. Like my body recognized betrayal before my mind could process it. She kissed my cheek casually and walked into the kitchen talking about work stress. And while she spoke, I realized something terrifying. I didn't believe a single word anymore. That night, I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every weird moment from the last few months in my head. The late nights, the defensiveness, the arrogance, the constant need for attention. And slowly, one thought became impossible to ignore. She was cheating on me. The next morning, I made a decision I never thought I'd make in my life. I hired a private investigator. The second I decided to hire a private investigator, I felt sick. Not because it seemed extreme, because deep down, I already knew what he was going to find. That's the horrible part about betrayal. Usually your instincts notice it long before your brain accepts it. At first, I considered checking Chloe's phone. That's what most people do, right? But honestly, it would have been pointless. She was glued to that thing constantly. Even took it into the bathroom with her. And if she was cheating, there was no way she'd leave obvious evidence sitting there waiting for me. Plus, I didn't want suspicion anymore. I wanted certainty. I wanted proof so undeniable that even my own emotions couldn't talk me out of it. So I searched online for private investigators in my city. The entire process felt surreal, like something out of a crime movie instead of my actual life. The investigator's office was small and boring. Gray walls, cheap coffee smell, stacks of paperwork everywhere. The guy himself looked exactly how you'd imagine. Late 50s, tired eyes, expressionless face like he'd spent decades watching relationships collapse. I sat across from him and explained everything. The late nights, the weird behavior, the defensiveness, the constant attention from other men. Even the weird, out-of-my-league comments she made sometimes. He listened quietly without interrupting. And honestly, that almost made things worse. Because he didn't look surprised by any of it. Like he'd heard this exact story 100 times already. Finally, he nodded slowly and said, "Your instincts are usually right in situations like this." That sentence hit hard, because part of me still wanted someone to tell me I was paranoid, overreacting. Instead, he immediately believed me. We agreed on 10 days of surveillance. Apparently 2 weeks would have been ideal, but it was expensive enough already. I gave him everything. Her work address, card details, routine, phone number. And then came the hardest part, waiting. Those 10 days were absolute torture mentally. Every single late night suddenly felt loaded with meaning. Every text message, every smile, every excuse. I started analyzing everything Chloe did like some insane detective. And meanwhile, she acted completely normal. Or at least she pretended to. She'd come home late and casually tell me some story about coworkers getting drinks after work. Traffic being terrible. Last-minute errands. The usual. And every time she spoke, all I could think was, is this the night she's with him? Because by then, I already knew there was probably another guy. I just didn't know who, or how long it had been happening. The investigator warned me not to contact him during the surveillance, unless it was an emergency. "Let me do my job," he said. Easy for him to say. Meanwhile, I barely slept. Couldn't focus at work. Stopped eating properly. Your brain does horrible things during situations like that. You imagine details, conversations, scenarios. You torture yourself with pictures you haven't even seen yet. And somehow, your mind always creates something worse than reality. Then finally, after 10 miserable days, the investigator called me. My stomach dropped instantly seeing the number. His voice stayed calm and professional. "I have the information you requested." That was it. No emotion, no dramatic build-up, just confirmation. I drove to his office feeling completely numb. The entire ride there felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life collapse from outside their body. When I walked into his office, there was a manila envelope sitting on the desk. Thick, too thick. The investigator motioned for me to sit down. Then he asked, "Do you want me to explain first, or do you want to look through the photos yourself?" Photos. That word alone almost made me throw up. I told him to explain first. I thought maybe hearing it verbally would soften the impact somehow. It didn't. He folded his hands together and said, "Your suspicions were correct." Just like that. No hesitation. No uncertainty. He explained that Chloe had visited the same apartment building 3 separate times during surveillance. Each visit lasted around 2 hours. Each time involved the same man. The investigator even had his name. Cody. Not his real name, obviously, but close enough. The second I heard there was an actual person attached to this, the anger became real. Before it was suspicion, fear. Now suddenly there was a face attached to my humiliation. The investigator slid the envelope toward me slowly. I opened it, and honestly, nothing prepares you for that moment. Nothing. There they were. Pictures of Chloe kissing another man outside an apartment building, holding hands, smiling, laughing together. One photo showed him touching her face while she looked at him exactly the way she used to look at me. That one hurt most, because suddenly I realized something horrible. While I was sitting at home trying to save our relationship, she was creating new memories with someone else. I stared at the photos for what felt like forever. The investigator kept talking professionally in the background, but honestly, I barely heard him anymore. My entire future felt like it shattered right there inside that office. Marriage plans, trips we discussed, the apartment, the routines, everything suddenly looked fake. And the worst part? She probably went home afterward pretending she loved me. That realization nearly broke me. At one point, the investigator asked quietly, "Do you need a minute?" I didn't even realize tears were running down my face until he said that. I wiped my face quickly, embarrassed. But honestly, there's something uniquely humiliating about seeing photographic proof of betrayal. Suspicion hurts. Proof destroys you. Eventually, I gathered the envelope and stood up. The investigator gave me one final piece of advice before I left. Don't confront her emotionally. I nodded automatically. But deep down, I already knew that wasn't possible. Because by then, I wasn't just heartbroken. I was furious. When I got home that night, Chloe was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone like everything was completely normal. And suddenly, I realized I was looking at a stranger. When I walked into the apartment that night, Chloe smiled at me like nothing had happened. That's the part one still can't fully process even now. How someone can betray you completely, then casually ask what you want for dinner 10 minutes later. She looked up from the couch and smiled softly. "Hey, babe, babe." That word almost made me sick. I stood there holding the envelope from the investigator while trying to keep my face calm. Every instinct inside me wanted to explode immediately. Scream, throw the pictures at her, demand answers. But strangely, I felt numb instead, like my brain overloaded emotionally and shut itself down to survive. Chloe frowned slightly. "You okay?" The irony of that question nearly broke me. I walked slowly into the kitchen and placed my keys down carefully. Then I looked directly at her. "How long has it been going on?" Her expression changed instantly. Tiny shift, barely visible, but enough. Because guilty people recognize certain tones immediately. "What are you talking about?" There it was. The first lie. Automatic. Effortless. I pulled the envelope out slowly and dropped it onto the coffee table. The second she saw it, all the color drained from her face. Silence filled the apartment. Heavy silence. She stared at the photos without touching them, then finally whispered, "Oh my God," not because she felt guilty, because she got caught. Huge difference. I sat across from her feeling strangely calm now. "When were you planning to tell me?" Chloe kept staring at the pictures silently. Then suddenly, she started crying. Real tears. At least I think they were real. Honestly, it's hard to tell after betrayal. Because once someone lies to you enough, even their emotions start looking fake. "It didn't mean anything," she whispered. That sentence made me laugh. Actually laugh. Not because it was funny. Because cheating always means nothing after people get caught. Interesting how meaningful it feels while they're doing it, though. I looked at one of the photos again. Her smiling at him, touching him, kissing him. That doesn't look meaningless. Chloe immediately switched tactics. Classic manipulation. "I've been unhappy for months." There it was. The rewrite. Suddenly, the relationship problems existed before the cheating instead of because of it. Funny how that works. You should have talked to me then. I tried. No, I snapped. You cheated. Silence. For a second, real anger flashed across her face. Like she was annoyed I refused to follow the script she prepared emotionally. Then she sighed dramatically and leaned back on the couch. And suddenly, the crying stopped. Almost instantly. That's when I realized something terrifying. She wasn't heartbroken. She was managing damage. Huge difference. I didn't think you'd actually find out, she admitted quietly. That sentence hit harder than the cheating itself somehow, because it revealed something ugly. She thought I was weak, easy to manipulate, easy to fool. And honestly, maybe she was right for a while. I asked the question destroying me internally. Do you love him? Long pause. Too long. And that pause told me everything before she even answered. I don't know. I closed my eyes briefly, because deep down, I already knew what that meant. If she truly loved me, there wouldn't even be hesitation. Then Chloe suddenly looked directly at me and said something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. You'll never find anyone like me again. The confidence in her voice was unbelievable. Like she genuinely believed I should feel lucky she cheated on me. At first, I just stared at her, trying to process what I heard. Then she kept talking. You know that, right? She gestured toward herself casually. I get attention everywhere I go. There it was. Finally, the truth underneath everything. Ego. Chloe genuinely believed her beauty made her irreplaceable. That I'd tolerate betrayal because losing her would somehow be worse. And honestly, part of me believed her. That's the sad part. When someone spends years subtly making you feel smaller, eventually you start seeing yourself through their eyes. I looked down at the floor quietly while she kept talking. You really think another girl like me is going to choose you? Every word landed like a knife. Not because they were true, because she knew exactly where my insecurities lived, and she aimed directly at them. Then she delivered the final blow. Cody's more confident than you. That sentence snapped something inside me instantly. Not emotionally, mentally. Like suddenly I saw the relationship clearly for the first time. This wasn't just cheating. Chloe enjoyed feeling superior. She enjoyed control, attention, power. And once she realized I loved her deeply, she started using that love against me. I stood up slowly, for the first time all night. She looked nervous. Where are you going? I walked toward the bedroom calmly, started pulling clothes from drawers. Not dramatic, not emotional, just done. Chloe followed behind me immediately. Wait, seriously? I ignored her and grabbed a duffel bag. Then suddenly her tone changed completely. Panic. Babe, come on. We can fix this. Interesting. A few minutes earlier, she was telling me nobody else would ever want me. Now, suddenly she wanted to fix things. Because manipulative people panic when control disappears unexpectedly. I zipped the bag quietly. You made your choice already. Chloe grabbed my arm. I made a mistake. I looked directly at her hand, touching me. And for the first time in years, I felt nothing. No comfort. No love. Nothing. Just exhaustion. Then she said the sentence proving everything. You're overreacting. Overreacting. To betrayal. To lies. To humiliation. That's when I finally understood something important. No apology coming from her would ever be real. Because she still didn't truly believe she did something unforgivable. She believed she deserved forgiveness automatically because of who she was. I pulled my arm away gently. Then I looked directly at her one final time. No, I said quietly. You just underestimated me. And then I walked out the door. I wish I could say I felt strong afterward. Empowered. Free. Truth? I sat in my car, shaking for nearly an hour, trying not to completely fall apart emotionally. Because even when leaving is the right choice, losing someone you loved still hurts like hell. Especially when they destroy your self-worth before they leave. But deep down, underneath all the pain, one thought kept repeating in my head. Maybe losing Chloe wasn't the tragedy she wanted me to believe it was. The weeks after leaving Chloe were brutal. Not dramatic movie heartbreak. Worse, quiet heartbreak. The kind that follows you everywhere. At work, at the grocery store, while brushing your teeth at night. Every little part of life suddenly felt heavier. I moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment across town because staying in our old place felt impossible. Everything there reminded me of her. The couch where we watched movies together. The kitchen where we cooked dinner. Even stupid little things like her coffee mugs still sitting beside mine. So I left almost everything behind. Furniture, decorations, memories. At first, I told myself I was handling it well, that I was being mature. But honestly, I was falling apart mentally. I barely slept, stopped eating properly, lost almost 15 pounds in 2 months without trying. And the worst part wasn't even the cheating anymore. It was the voice she left inside my head. You'll never find anyone like me again. That sentence replayed constantly, especially during lonely nights. Because no matter how logical you try to be after betrayal, insecurity still creeps in quietly. And Chloe knew exactly what she was doing when she said it. She attacked the part of me already scared of not being enough. One night, I remember sitting alone eating microwave noodles in my apartment when I accidentally opened Instagram. Huge mistake, because there she was, smiling, beautiful as ever, posting rooftop bar pictures with captions about protecting your peace. The irony almost made me throw my phone across the room. And worse, Cody appeared in some of the photos. Not directly, just enough to know. A hand, a reflection, inside Joe captions, subtle public relationship, soft launch stuff. And suddenly I felt humiliated all over again. Because while I was struggling to survive emotionally, she looked perfectly fine, happy even. That destroyed me mentally for a while. I started comparing myself constantly. Cody was taller than me, more muscular, flashier, the type of guy who posts gym selfies and expensive watches online. And slowly, I started believing Chloe's words more and more. Maybe she really was too good for me. Maybe I just got lucky temporarily. That mindset is dangerous after betrayal. Because once someone damages your confidence deeply enough, you start helping destroy yourself. My friend Daniel noticed immediately. One afternoon, he came over unexpectedly after I ignored calls for days. The second he walked into my apartment, he looked around and frowned. "You look terrible." I laughed weakly. "Thanks." "No, seriously," he said. "You look like you haven't slept in weeks." Honestly, I probably hadn't. Daniel sat down across from me and stayed quiet for a minute before asking, "You still checking her social media?" I didn't answer, which basically answered for me. He sighed heavily. "Bro, you need to stop torturing yourself." Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one whose confidence got ripped apart by someone he loved. Then Daniel said something that genuinely annoyed me. "She's not special." I laughed immediately. "Yes, she is." "No," he replied calmly. "She's just attractive." That sentence stuck with me afterward. Because for months, I confused beauty with value. Chloe trained me to do that. Everything in the relationship revolved around her attractiveness. The attention she got, the validation she received, the way people stared at her whenever we walked in her rooms. Eventually, I started treating her beauty like proof she was superior. And honestly, I built part of the pedestal myself. Daniel looked around my depressing apartment and shook his head. "You know what your problem is?" "What?" "You think losing her means you lost the competition." That hit harder than expected. Because deep down, he was right. I wasn't just grieving the relationship. I felt rejected, defeated, like another man won. And that mentality was poisoning me. A few days later, something happened that changed everything slightly. I ran into Chloe accidentally. At the grocery store. Of all places. I was standing in the frozen food aisle debating whether frozen pizza counted as depression or survival when I heard her voice behind me. Wow! My stomach dropped instantly. I turned around slowly, and there she was. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect smile. Like heartbreak never touched her at all. For a second, every insecurity came rushing back immediately. Then she looked me up and down carefully and smiled. Not warmly, knowingly. "You lost weight." I shrugged awkwardly. "Yeah." Then she tilted her head slightly and said, "You look sad." That sentence hit me like a punch, because she sounded almost satisfied saying it. Like seeing me struggle emotionally validated something for her. Then she glanced at my shopping basket filled with cheap frozen food and laughed softly. "You're really not handling this well." And suddenly, everything became clear. Chloe didn't just want to leave the relationship. She wanted to leave knowing she still had power over me afterward. That's why she said those things during the breakup. That's why she kept posting carefully curated happy photos online. That's why she looked almost disappointed when I didn't completely fall apart publicly. This was about ego, control, validation, and standing there in the grocery store. I finally saw her differently for the first time. Not magical, not irreplaceable, just deeply insecure underneath all the confidence. Because truly secure people don't need to destroy others to feel valuable. Chloe stepped closer slightly. You know, she smirked. You probably should have fought harder for me. That sentence actually made me laugh. First genuine laugh in months. Because suddenly the manipulation felt obvious. Transparent. Almost pathetic. She looked confused by my reaction. What's funny? I shook my head slowly. Nothing. But internally, something shifted. For the first time since the breakup, I stopped seeing myself as the guy who lost Chloe and started seeing Chloe as the woman who lost someone who genuinely loved her. Huge difference. Before leaving, she gave me one final look and said, "You'll miss me forever." Maybe once. That sentence would have destroyed me. But standing there now, I just smiled politely, then walked away. And for the first time in months, I didn't look back. After the grocery store encounter, something inside me finally changed. Not overnight, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly, like waking up after being emotionally asleep for months. For the first time since the breakup, I stopped obsessing over Chloe, stopped checking her social media, stopped imagining her life with Cody every night before sleeping. And honestly, that alone felt revolutionary. Because heartbreak becomes addictive sometimes. You replay memories, compare yourself constantly, torture yourself with questions that have no good answers. And eventually, pain becomes part of your identity. I didn't even realize how trapped I was until I finally started letting go. Daniel helped a lot with that, mostly by refusing to let me isolate myself forever. One Saturday morning, he showed up at my apartment unannounced, holding 2 coffees and said, "Get dressed." I frowned. For what? You're leaving this cave. I almost argued, then realized he was right. Because my entire life had shrunk after Chloe left. Work, apartment, repeat. That was it. No hobbies, no social life, no energy. I wasn't living anymore, just surviving. Daniel dragged me to the gym first. And honestly, I hated it immediately. Loud music, people filming themselves, influencers pretending to work out while staring at cameras. The entire place felt exhausting. But Daniel forced consistency. 3 days a week, then 4. Then eventually it became routine. And strangely, the more my body changed, the quieter Chloe's voice became in my head. Not because muscles magically fix trauma, because rebuilding yourself physically reminds you that change is possible, that you're not permanently stuck as the version of yourself someone rejected. A few months later, even coworkers started noticing. "You look different," one woman at work told me. At first I assumed she meant healthier. Then she smiled and added, "More confident." That surprised me, because confidence was never really my thing before, especially during my relationship with Chloe. When someone constantly positions themselves as the prize, you slowly start shrinking emotionally beside them. Without realizing it, you become grateful for attention instead of equal in the relationship. Now, for the first time in years, I stopped feeling lucky whenever someone attractive spoke to me. That mental shift changed everything. Then came the weirdest part. Women started noticing me more. And honestly, that confused me initially. Not because I transformed into some model overnight, because my energy changed. People sense insecurity, and they also sense when someone finally respects themselves again. One night, Daniel convinced me to go out with a group from work. Normally, I would have refused immediately, but something inside me felt different lately. Lighter. So I went. Nothing crazy. Just drinks at a rooftop bar downtown. Halfway through the night, one of the women from marketing sat beside me and started flirting pretty aggressively. Omi would have panicked, overanalyzed everything, assumed she was joking. Instead, I just talked to her normally. And that's when I realized something huge. For years, Chloe made me believe attraction was something she gifted me. Like beautiful women existed on some higher level where a regular guy should feel grateful just being chosen temporarily. But sitting there laughing naturally with someone new, I suddenly understood how toxic that mindset was. Healthy relationships don't feel like auditions. They feel equal. That realization healed something deep inside me. Then about 8 months after the breakup, I ran into Chloe again, this time downtown. I was leaving a coffee shop when I saw her walking toward me, and immediately I noticed something different. She looked irritated, not glamorous, not glowing, just annoyed. Then I saw Cody behind her carrying shopping bags while she complained about something loudly. The second Chloe noticed me, she froze briefly. Then her entire expression changed. That familiar performance smile appeared instantly. "Wow," she said. "You look good." The funny thing? For the first time since meeting her, I genuinely didn't care what she thought anymore. That realization felt surreal. Cody stood beside her awkwardly while she kept trying to hold conversation longer than necessary, asking about work, life, the gym. Meanwhile, I answered politely but briefly, and I could feel it bothering her, because suddenly, she wasn't controlling the interaction anymore. Then came the moment that changed everything permanently. Chloe looked at me carefully before asking, "So, are you seeing anyone?" Simple question, but the tone underneath, it was obvious. Curiosity, validation seeking, maybe even jealousy. And suddenly I understood something clearly. People like Chloe don't just want love. They want reassurance that they're unforgettable, that they still own space inside your mind forever. I shrugged casually. "Yeah, actually, not entirely true yet. There was someone I recently started talking to seriously, but it wasn't official." Still, the reaction on Chloe's face shocked me. For half a second, genuine panic appeared. Tiny, fast, but real. Then she forced a smile. "Oh, wow." Meanwhile, Cody stood there looking uncomfortable as hell, realizing this conversation clearly had history behind it. And suddenly, I saw the entire relationship dynamic differently. Chloe didn't leave me because Cody was some soulmate. She left because she chased attention constantly. Validation, excitement, and eventually people like that become trapped forever needing more. More admiration, more desire, more proof they still matter. But honestly, that sounds exhausting. Before leaving, Chloe smiled awkwardly and said, "Well, I hope you're happy." And for the first time, I answered honestly, "I am." No anger, no performance, just truth. The crazy part? I think that hurt her more than any revenge ever could. Because finally, I stopped needing her approval completely. And the version of me standing there that day, that's the version of me she never expected to exist. About a year after the breakup, my life barely resembled the version Chloe left behind. And honestly, that still feels strange to say out loud. Because during those first few months after the cheating, I genuinely believed my life was over. Not logically, emotionally, like I had lost the best thing that would ever happen to me. That's what toxic relationships do. They convince you your worth depends on keeping someone who constantly damages it. But slowly, everything changed. Work improved. My confidence improved. Even my apartment changed. I moved out of the depressing little place where I spent months emotionally collapsing and got a better apartment downtown with huge windows and actual sunlight. Funny how healing starts showing up in physical spaces too. And then there was Emma, the woman I mentioned earlier, the one I started talking to casually after months of avoiding relationships completely. At first, I kept waiting for red flags, manipulation, games, ego, but Emma felt different immediately. Calm. That's the best word for her. Being around Chloe always felt emotionally loud. Even during good moments, there was always tension underneath everything. Always competition for attention. Always subtle reminders that she believed she was the prize. Emma didn't do that. She asked questions and actually listened to answers. She remembered small details. She made me feel relaxed instead of anxious. And honestly, that terrified me at first. Because after surviving toxicity, peace can feel unfamiliar, almost suspicious. One night, while we were cooking dinner together, Emma noticed me staring at her weirdly and laughed. What? I shook my head. Nothing. But internally, I realized something huge. I wasn't trying to impress her constantly. I wasn't scared she'd suddenly lose interest if I said the wrong thing. I wasn't competing for basic affection. And suddenly I understood how exhausting my relationship with Chloe actually was. A few weeks later, Emma met Daniel. Big moment. Mostly because Daniel hated Chloe passionately and basically treated every new woman in my life like a suspicious FBI investigation. After dinner, he pulled me aside privately while Emma was in the bathroom. "She's good for you," he said immediately. I laughed. "That obvious?" "Yeah," he nodded. "You're finally acting like yourself again." That sentence stayed with me, because I honestly didn't realize how much of myself disappeared during my relationship with Chloe. Constant insecurity changes people slowly. You become smaller emotionally, careful, quiet, desperate not to lose someone who already enjoys making you feel replaceable. Now, I finally felt stable again. Then one random Tuesday night, my phone buzzed with a message from Chloe. First contact in months. Just seeing her name appear made my stomach tighten automatically. Old instincts, old memories. The message itself was simple. "Hey, can we talk?" That was it. No explanation. No context. I stared at the screen for a long time. And honestly, a year earlier, that message would have destroyed my peace completely. I would have overanalyzed every word. Imagined reconciliation, closure, validation. Now, though, I mostly just felt curious. So against my better judgment, I replied, "What's up?" 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, Cody and I broke up. I leaned back against the couch, quietly reading the message twice. Not because I was shocked. Honestly, part of me always expected it eventually. Relationships built on ego and validation rarely survive reality very long. Then another message appeared. "I miss talking to you." There it was. Not accountability, not apology, loneliness. Huge difference. And suddenly I saw the situation with complete clarity. Chloe wasn't messaging me because she suddenly understood my value. She messaged because the attention source she replaced me with disappeared. That realization felt strangely freeing, because for the first time, I wasn't emotionally trapped by her anymore. I didn't need her to regret hurting me. I didn't need revenge. I didn't even need answers. Then came the message that made me laugh quietly. "You were the best boyfriend I ever had." Funny how people realize your value after they destroy the relationship themselves. I stared at the phone for a while before finally responding. "Then why did you treat me like I was replaceable?" Long pause. "Then, I was immature." Maybe she was. Maybe she genuinely regretted things now. Honestly, I don't know. But the important thing was this. Her regret no longer controlled my emotions. That's real healing. Not pretending you don't care. Not becoming cold. Just finally reaching a point where someone else's choices stop defining your worth. A few minutes later, Chloe sent one final message. "I really did love you, you know." That sentence made me sad in a weird way, because maybe she believed it. But love without respect eventually becomes destruction. And I finally understood that now. I looked across the apartment at Emma asleep on the couch with one of my hoodies wrapped around her while some terrible reality show played quietly in the background. Peace. Real peace. Not chaos disguised as passion. Not insecurity disguised as excitement. Just peace. Then I typed my final message to Chloe. "I hope you find what you're looking for." And after sending it, I blocked her number. Not out of anger. Not revenge. Closure. Real closure. Because the truth is, Chloe was right about one thing all along. I never found another woman exactly like her again. Thank God for that.